At all?
Yeah.
Are you going to answer any questions?
Okay. Okay, I'll hope so.
Okay. Now thank you. The first question is not really a question, it's just like a thank you. It says, "Thank you for the wonderful Sutta classes. I really liked hearing why you chose to translate things a certain way and how you tied everything back to the jhanas, driving home their importance. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu." So thank you for that. If every question is so easy, we may be finished early. Dear Ajahn, so in the Zen tradition, it's said that the second patriarch asked the first patriarch to calm his mind. And the first patriarch asked, "Where's your mind?" The second patriarch replied, "I can't find my mind." First patriarch replied, "Then your mind is calm now." What would your educated guess of the meaning of this story? Thank you. I'm not educated. I'm a Theravada monk, so I don't know much about Zen. But I did remember that third patriarch. And I think in that particular tradition, it was actually pointing out that we think too much. And we get, "Where's your mind?" I would answer, "I don't have a mind. My mind is, but no owner is found." How many of you say, "My practice"? Is it really your practice? Do you own it? Really? For many of you who've known me for many years, I've taught you, so it's not your practice, it's my practice. I'm responsible for it. And then Ajahn Chah is responsible for that. And Ajahn Man is responsible for Ajahn Chah's one. So it's not your practice. You've been brainwashed. So when it says your or my, sometimes it's wonderful when you don't own things. I kind of like it when it's like that. Where's Ajahn Brahm's hut? I don't know. I'm in a hotel today, so my hut's upstairs somewhere. So when you think of what actually do you own? I have a room here temporarily, and for one more night, then I give it up. I have a body for I don't know how many nights. But really, do you own your body? If I owned my body, this is from the Untitled Sutta, I could tell it what to do. I could say, "Don't be tired." I can say to it, "Don't get old, get young." Wouldn't you like to be young? Really? You mean you want to go back to school again? So a lot of times, in life we find a lot of times we think we own things, but we don't really. Even all my knowledge and understanding about theoretical physics, I spent so much hard work learning all that stuff. But now, if you gave me an exam on theoretical physics, I don't think I'd get 10% right. What actually do you own? I was saying this to someone today. Are you male or are you female? That's just the body you happen to live in. And it's nice if you can recollect some past lives and realize in many past lives you've been female or male. We just kind of forgot what it's like. But then if you could remember, then you built more understanding of what the other gender feels like. And when you have more understanding, then you can relate much better to people who are different. How many of you have been a Kwai Lo before? Then you can understand what they feel like, or whoever what they feel like. One of the nicest things is when you see what we call the big picture, not just of one life, but of many lives. Then this life is interesting, but it's not so heavy on you if things go wrong. It's not so wonderful on you if it goes right. It's just a life where we learn a little bit more each time. When we learn enough, then we don't have to get reborn again. one of the things which I like for your own experience is when you have all these amazing stories of people in their past lives. And especially remember just when a person is the few times when people are born and they can speak. I'm sure I said this in one of the talks here, but then the first time this occurred, there was this mother who came to see me, and she was really kind of freaked out because what had happened was that she'd just given birth to her second son, and when the second son came home, was in a pram in the room, she asked her elder son, about 3 or 4 years old, go and say good night to your baby brother, Paul. So the elder son, 3 or 4 years of age, Peter, went over to the pram, leaned over and said, good night, Paul. And that's when Paul replied, good night, Peter. He was only about 2 or 3 weeks old. That's impossible. So they stopped what they were doing and they looked, they stared. These are parents. This can't be happening. With no prompting at all, the elder son, Peter, only 4 or 5 years old or something, leant over to baby brother and said, good night. The elder brother, Peter, leant over the little baby brother, Paul, and said again, good night, Paul. And this time they were both staring, looking, what you call mindful, not because they were practicing Buddhist, but it's because they were stunned. And their baby brother said again, good night, Peter. What would you do if you had a kid 2 weeks old and could speak? What they did, they weren't Buddhists, but they thought if we go and tell the doctor or tell anybody, they'll think we're crazy and bad parents, and they'll probably take our kids away from us. So they came and asked the Buddhist monks instead, because they somehow knew that the Buddhist monks, believe and understand rebirth. So I said, that's just what's happening. Your little baby being reborn and still has a mind which is capable of speaking. And there was another case where that happened. I don't know if you remember this case. It was actually reported quite widely. This little kid, as soon as he was born, walked 7 steps and said, this is my last life. Before then, I thought, that was just a myth, the story of Siddhartha Gautama. But then you actually look and see there's many other stories like that. As soon as, I give talks for a long time, as soon as I said that, there was a couple of other Malaysians, who are in Perth. They said that happened to their son. When he was born, he spoke. They said we never told anybody about it at the time because they never thought that anyone would believe them. But I can't resist saying one of the famous stories of somebody speaking when they were born. I don't have much evidence about it, but they said it happened in a maternity ward in the US. The baby was born. When it came out the womb, it looked around and spoke. Oh no, not again. Would you say that if you were born again? Oh no, not again. You have to go to school, kindergarten again, school again, and just be trying to tell your mummy and daddy what you need, and they say, shut up, be quiet. That's what happens with parents. When your kids are very young, you can't wait until they can speak and walk. And as soon as they can walk, you tell them to sit down. As soon as they speak, say, shut up, be quiet. It's very frustrating. Frustrating being a kid. So anyhow, that's just a little bit about no rebirth, and you're not always, the same gender, not always, the same place where you were before, where you were reborn. And I love stories, which sometimes confound you. One of I don't mind telling you her name. I mean, many of you know Lucky in Sri Lankan lady. Ask her, one of her sons when he was born. One of her sons when he was born insisted on eating food with chopsticks. He was Chinese before. In this life, it's Sri Lankan. Interesting. Anyway, let's go and answer some more questions. Should we take everything that is mentioned in the suttas literally? In one sutta, a monk called Mahamoggallana was able to to travel to a different realm to meet a god. The god was living in a palace, with 100 rooms. Each had 7 nymphs, and each nymph had 7 maids. It's actually much more than that. Moggallana wanted to get the god's attention, so he flicked his foot, causing the palace to shake. Did that literally happen? Also, 100 rooms, 7 nymphs, 7 maids. The number seemed too perfect. Why not 87 rooms? It kind of reads like a legend rather than something that literally the case. When you hear those myths, you think, maybe that heavenly being was having a good time, but those poor nymphs and the nymphs' maids, there's so many of them. Who looked after them? It's really unfair. And so all this is an expression of especially male ideas of a heavenly bliss. And these are all called mind-made realms. It's the same with the hell realms. What is it like down in the hell realm? Is it just, all flames? Some of you who like the hot weather would love to be down there in the hot weather. There's one of these stories about these 2 Australians who got reborn in the hell realm. It was very warm, but these 2 Australians, they like the heat. They spend all their time working in these minefields in the outback where it's very hot. So they said, it's really lovely and warm down here, and they didn't mind working. And the little demon in charge of that heaven realm said, they're enjoying themselves in the heat. So he turned up the temperature, and it was really hot. I said, this is just like working in the north of Western Australia. And that's extremely hot in some of these places. So again, it was, they were happy. So he really turned it up hot. And they were saying, this is like being in a sauna. And they love being in saunas. It's very healthy for them. So they were still enjoying it. And then this little spirit, the evil spirit, thought, I'm not getting through to these 2 Australians. So now I know what I'm going to do. He turned it down really cold until there was ice everywhere. And then they were jumping up and down, punching the air for joy. He said, what's going on now? Why are you so happy? And they said, well, we always knew that when Australia won the Football World Cup, the hell would freeze over before Australia won the Football World Cup. So we must have won the World Cup. Yay! That was supposed to be a joke. But there's something which, I don't know any of you who've been to Java and seen the Buddhist monument Borobudur. That big stupa, the Chaitya in the middle of Java? It's got many layers. It's supposed to be a representation of the Buddhist cosmology. The bottom layer is the hell realm, then the human realm, and then the heavenly realms. This big monument, Borobudur. Okay, good. So anyway, I was fortunate enough to have a guided tour by one of the monks there, Venerable Sri Panyawara. He became a very good friend. And one of the the carvings in the bottom layer, the hell realms, there was a picture of this guy with a razor wheel cutting his head. And the story was that, he had mistreated his mother and made his mother fall over. And so he had to go down to this hell realm, and there he saw another man who was having his head cut with a razor wheel, torture. And he said, I've been down here 600 years. I was told after 600 years that this man enjoying the pain of the razor wheel, that another man would come down who did the same bad thing I did, and then I would be released. And so the razor wheel left this first man's head and went into the new man's head. And it was agonizing, extraordinarily painful. And the second man said, it was a terrible thing that I hurt my own mother. And it's a terrible thing to feel the karmic retribution. So may I, out of compassion for all other people, may I take the next, not just 600 years, but take 1800 years. I will take that punishment for the next two people who have to come down here, out of kindness, compassion. And at that, this is a story depicted on the carving. At that, the razor wheel exploded, and this man was reborn in heaven. Even in hell realms, if you have acts of kindness and compassion, you cannot stay in a hell realm. You get released straight away. It was based on a story like that I often tell people, the doors of hell are not locked. You can walk out whenever you want, as long as you have the compassionate and kind mind. Whatever you've done which has hurt another being, if you can forgive yourself and be kind and really vow never, ever, ever to do that again, the karmic consequences explode. You don't realize how powerful that forgiveness is. One of the things about being a stream winner, have you ever read that? Once you're a stream winner, how many more lifetimes have you got left? Oh, good, you remember. But once you're a stream winner, any one of those lifetimes cannot be in a lower realm. You can't even be reborn in the animal realm. Certainly not in the hell realms. And sometimes I thought, why not? You may still have some karma from the past. Now you're a stream winner, but before some karma in the past, which would usually merit you going down into a hell realm. Why not? And the reason is because once you understand this Dhamma, you don't need to feel guilty anymore. You are not sent to the hell realms. You choose to go. The heavenly beings, or some heavenly beings, are supposed to remind you of all the actions you did and things you didn't do in this life when you die. That's all they can do, remind you. I always thought it was weird and strange why heavenly beings can say, you're a bad person, you go down to hell. If I was a heavenly being and someone came up and they'd done some terrible, terrible things, I often say, suppose it was like Adolf Hitler from the Second World War. And if I was that heavenly being, like Yama his name is, if I was that heavenly being and I saw Adolf Hitler come up, I'd say, now listen, that's a stupid, terrible thing you did, responsible for so much death. But look, I forgive you. You don't need to be punished. Will you promise never to do that again? And then I'll tell him, I'll send you up to heaven realm. But will shave out the moustache and give you a new hairstyle. Otherwise, people won't understand. Forgiveness is beautiful. And I remember telling that story. I think it was on maybe the first talk which I gave on this trip to Hong Kong, one which really inspired me. And it was very close to me because I was in Thailand during the time there was like a rebellion. This was internal. Students, mostly from Thammasat University, who'd been very oppressed and seen many of their colleagues thrown into burning piles when they were still alive. And when you see that yourself, that was gross. That was like almost unforgivable. So these very highly educated students went off into the jungles and arranged themselves to fight the regime. They did an insurrection. And at that time, the biggest, because I was there at the time, that was the biggest danger, to Thailand's existence as a country. These were Thai people, kids, strong, highly motivated. And this was the year when I went on Tudong, that's the walking in Thailand. And I met many of the soldiers. I had to be careful because in some places, close to where I was walking, there were some monks on Tudong, and they were captured, by these what do you call them, rebels, and the two senior monks were killed. So they weren't messing around. So I had to ask the soldiers, what mountain, what caves, what forest is safe? And I was surprised. The soldier said, that forest over there, that's safe, but don't go over there. That's where the rebels are. I said, you know where they are? I said, yeah, we know where they are. Why don't you go in there and do something? Are you lazy soldiers? And they said no, because they had this policy. These were soldiers fighting an insurrection, the policy of non-violence. They knew exactly where they were. They would not go, with all the armaments they had been given after the Vietnam War, from the Americans. They weren't going to go in there and do anything. They knew exactly where they were. And instead, they had non-violence and amnesty. The amnesty meant when any one of those soldiers, doesn't matter what they did, when they wanted just to give up, they just give up their weapons and they can go back to university or to the village or the job they were doing before. No questions asked, amnesty. And lastly, the government put extra effort into making sure the villages and towns in those areas which were supporting the rebels, they were developed, giving electricity, roads upgraded, more dams so they could get more water and a second crop of rice. All those villages became happy with the government. And so after a while, the villagers say, what's the point of supporting you? The government's doing what governments are supposed to do, look after their people. And I remember meeting one of the soldiers. He was supposed to be on guard by one of these villages. And he said, yeah, when the rebels come down to get some rice, I never take photos of them or get their names or arrest them. I know who they are. We all know who they are. Instead, I show them the new watch I purchased or the new radio. I don't know if you know, they used to call them ghetto blasters. It's a new radio I've just bought. Just they were friendly and showing there was prosperity coming in the kingdom. So then, slowly, when they wanted, all these rebels surrendered, one by one, total amnesty, which was real, and they went back to school or university or their parents and just got their life back together again. I remember this because I remember seeing this article in the Bangkok Post. Those caves, which were their headquarters, some enterprising person was offering tours to the headquarters of these rebels and making quite a bit of money out of it. But then the most interesting part of that story was when the leaders of this rebellion gave themselves up. And when they gave themselves up, I thought, what would you do to the 3 or 4 people who are the main organizers? Would you put them in a jail for the rest of their lives? Would you line them up against a wall and shoot them? Would you tell them to go overseas and never come back? For once, the Thai government acted in the Buddhist way. Amnesty went for everybody. But they were not just forgiven. They were offered chief posts in the Thai, what they call it, civil service. They realized that these young men and women were highly motivated, incredibly well organized, would work for their country instead of working against us, work with us. They were all given amnesty and good jobs. When I was there, I knew that was what happened. Because as a monk, sometimes you'd look after Ajahn and all these generals would come up. I could know Thai and Laotian fluently, so when they talked, I could understand exactly what they were saying. That's actually what was happening. And then when I gave a talk on that subject in the Thai consulate in Sydney, then the Thai consul put his hand up and said, "Can I interrupt you, Ajahn Brahm?" Of course. Said, not only is that story true, but there's more to it than that. Said right now, that time, it's quite a few years ago now, 2 of those leaders trying to overthrow Thailand are now senior politicians, ministers in the Thai government. These were highly motivated, highly educated people. Why waste them? Come in and work for us. I remember telling that story when there was this corrupt businessman in Perth who was put in jail in Carnet Prison Farm, and that's where we used to go and visit every week, teaching meditation. And I was actually hoping I'd meet him in that jail to teach him meditation. He would make a wonderful treasurer for our Buddhist society when he got released. He knew everything about money and how to make money. So, of course, that never happened. But nevertheless, why waste the talent? Can't we make use of it somehow? And what, for once, the Thai government actually did that. Good on them. I don't know why I got into that. Oh, Mahamoggallana and hell realms and heavenly realms. Do you believe in heavenly realms? How many of you remember that story of the monk or the young American who wanted to become a monk and was helped by a very strange source? Do you remember that story? Some do, some don't. If you remember it or not, here it comes. Because sometimes people like spirit stories, ghost stories, but this is a heavenly being story. There was, and I know this man, he was just doing Peace Corps work in Thailand for 2 or 3 years, I think 2 years. And after finishing his stint as a Peace Corps worker, he thought he'd try being a monk, a Buddhist monk. It's pretty easy to become a monk in Thailand. So he didn't know how to become a monk. So he was staying in a hotel just on the edge of Bangkok, and he asked the concierge, I want to become a monk, what should I do? And even the concierge didn't know what to do. So he said, well, I've heard that there are some Western monks, Kwailo monks, at this monastery called Wat Bhawan. So why not go there in the morning, take a little, like tiffin can. Do you know tiffin cans? In a little basins, one after another, which people used to use to take to people at work, or it's basically like a lunch basket. But you'd especially take that to offer food to the monks on alms round. So get a tiffin can, put some food in it, and then wait to Whopper one, go there early, and when the monks come out, put some food in their bowl, and then ask them, "Now I want to become a monk." So he went there way too early. No one was around. Everything was locked up, about 4 o'clock in the morning or something. And he was walking up and down, not knowing what to do. And as he was walking up and down, just there's hardly anyone around, this Thai man came to approach him and asked him what he was doing in perfect English. And he said that he wanted to become a monk. He was told to come here early in the morning. He got a tiffin can full of food, but there's no one around. And this Thai man said, "You've come too early. The monks are not going to come out on alms round for another couple of hours." But then he said, "Now I've got the keys. I will actually show you around." So this American followed this Thai man, and he opened this iron gate in Wat Bawan. And when they went into Wat Bawan, then they went to the main hall, and this Thai man turned on the lights and had the key to enter the main hall. That's the hall where they do all the ordinations, and it's the main sanctuary. And so when they went into the hall, you often see many murals in the Thai halls. And those murals are very hard to decipher. They are like Jataka tales, but like the cartoons you see in newspapers, they go from the left to the right, and then the next line, and then the next line. In the Thai system of art, it goes all over the place, up and down. You have to know the story to actually see all the characters and how it all combines together. But this Thai man knew so much about these murals, could explain everything perfectly, even more than just what the story was. He also said, who actually painted it and who commissioned it. In those days, it was because you had a son who was maybe had a typhoid or something, or cholera, and died. And they sponsored those paintings. This gentleman was such a mine of amazing information that 2 hours passed so quickly. And once they were finished, the Thai man said, "The head monk will be coming out. So not the head monk, but one of the senior monks at that door over there. You go and wait there. And when he comes out, this old monk, put some food in his bowl and then tell him, I want to become a monk." That's what to do. And I'll lock up and turn off the electricity. So that's what this young American did. And then he asked to become a monk from this old monk. Everything worked out fine. And the old monk said, "Just wait here till I come back, then I'll take you inside." And so he started the training to become a monk. The problem was there's so much to learn, and the ceremonies and the basic rules. And so this American, he was trying the best he could, but the person who was training him, his English wasn't that good. So this American said, "Isn't there not someone else who speaks better English?" And the other monks helping said, "This is the best English speaker in the whole of the temple." And that's when this American said, "What about that man I met on the first morning, who opened the gate, had the keys and let me in, who let me into the main hall and told me so much about the murals there?" And that's when the monk said, "There is no such man. I know that temple very well. I was in Thailand for about 8 or 9 years. Sometimes I'd stay there. That gate is known as the Royal Gate. Not even I was allowed to walk through it. That's where the kings, princes, maybe princesses of Thailand can walk through that gate to do ceremonies such as their ordination. Not even I could walk through that gate. And apparently, you can't turn on the electricity for where they said the electricity was turned on, and no layperson has the keys to the main hall. So as soon as they heard this making no sense, they took this monk to see the abbot. And the abbot listened to him in his office, stopped him, and called for the secretary. And told the secretary of Wat Bhawan to write everything down, because this was weird, strange. And then when he wrote it all down, not even the abbot knew the story of all those paintings. The hall was built about 150, 200 years ago. And so when they wrote it all down, the abbot asked the usual question. Who was that fellow? Describe him. And the only thing he could say was he was wearing not, modern Thai clothes, but old style, traditional style clothes. But what did he look like? Please excuse me, but I think the Americans said, I don't know, they all look the same. Because it's hard when you go to a country not familiar with, to describe people's features. And he said, I don't know. I said, please tell us something more. And apparently this monk, or this man at the time, he was scratching his head, as Westerners do when they try to think. And he looked around, and scratching his, and he froze. There was a portrait on the wall of the abbot's office. It was him. That's the fellow who opened the door, took me in, opened the main hall, and described about all those paintings or murals. It was that fellow. And that was King Rama IV, the main sponsor of that temple, who died, over, I think, 100 years ago, more than that, 150 years ago. And I've told that story many times. And once telling it, it was in the Thai embassy in Singapore. And the ambassador there, it's actually Thai, it was the embassy. The ambassador there, again, stood up at the end of on question time and said to me, Ajahn Brahm, as well as being the ambassador, the Thai ambassador in Singapore, I'm also on the committee which looks after Wat Bhawan. I wanted to tell you that's 100% accurate, what you said. It's in the history books of that temple. A heavenly being could open that gate because he was a king, deceased, but now a heavenly being, come to help somebody who wanted to be a monk, could open the main gate, open the hall itself, and explain all about the murals in that building. And even the abbot didn't know those details. The abbot soon became the chief monk of Thailand, but he didn't know all those details. I know that monk. I know that this is absolutely true. I've told it as accurately as I possibly could. A heavenly being coming down to help somebody. That's what real heavenly beings are like. Not just living with nymphs in every part of your dwelling. I kind of like that story. And it's real. Does anybody want to make a comment about it? Have you ever been helped by? Oh, you go on.
I was just going to say, if it's good enough for that layperson to walk through the gates, then maybe it's good enough for everyone else.
This is like tradition. That layperson could walk through those gates because he was invited by a king. If you try to do that, you get arrested. It's that traditions which people have. And it was early in the morning, no one saw them. But why he could do that? Because he was a former king of Thailand. And if you know the Thai culture, you can understand just it's not going against the Thai culture, it's explaining it even more deeply. Anyway, the next question, could you explain how to do walking meditation and how we cultivate stillness in walking meditation when our body is actually moving? And can we attain states of jhana in walking meditation? I'll answer the third question first. I always thought that walking meditation was just too active to get into a jhana, because if you do, you lose all perception of your five senses. But I remember one of my friends in Thailand said, no, there is a monk, this one monk, when he does walking meditation, he does get into jhana. He said, I know that because he's got so many band-aids and bandages on his face. When you're doing walking meditation, you get into jhana, you lose all perception of your body. That's what's supposed to happen. So it's not a good thing to do. If you get close to a jhana, sit down. Then you'll be safe. Anyway, that's maybe telling me that, and I laughed as well. How do you do walking meditation? If it's not just going for a walk, this is walking meditation. Choose a path. So, in my room, it's a big room, but, you find a path where you can just do some walking meditation. This is quite long through here, but maybe half this, or even less than that. You start at one end and you walk slowly to the other end. I say slowly, but not artificially slowly. And you just put your attention maybe a body length in front of you. You do that so you don't trip over things and you don't hit the wall, you don't look left or you don't look right. It's lovely to do it in solitude. If you do it with other people, and some people do, sometimes it's like a race, not to get to the other end first, but who could walk the slowest. But then you look down a couple of meters in front, put your hands in a comfortable position and begin walking, and then become aware of what happens when you're walking. What muscles have to move? So I ask people, when you start walking, what part of your foot leaves the ground first? What part of your foot leaves the ground last? So you're fully aware of the foot moving and breaking contact with the ground. And as it moves up, does it move straight up? My foot and leg, when it moves up, it moves backwards a bit. And then when I step forward, I can feel the weight of the body being transferred onto the leg, which is still touched to the ground. And my foot moves in an arc forward. And then it goes downwards, not in a straight line, it goes down and back a bit. And then what part of my foot reaches the ground first? What part reaches the ground last? And then you find the feet stabilizing, making sure you're balanced. The weight transfers to that foot, and then the other foot moves up. You begin to become fully aware of, this is how I do it, the movements in the foot and the lower leg of walking. You're becoming like a dancer or learning how to walk for the first time. And honestly, there's so much goes on in your legs when you walk. You become so aware of all of it it becomes fascinating. And, you become really aware of walking. And it's not boring at all. You go into this lovely world of the lower legs when you're walking backwards and forwards. And the furthest I've got in that walking meditation is that experience when I was walking maybe about 45 minutes, and then I was totally immersed. I'm very enjoying just watching how my feet move. And then I heard this sound, and it appeared like a sound from 100 miles away. Brahm so. Brahm so. That's Ajahn Brahm is a shortened version out of compassion for you. That's the problem with these long names, that people find it very hard to pronounce. You can ask Ajahn Brahmadi when he comes here, that sometimes, what's your name? Brahmali. Pardon? Brahmali. Oh, Bob Marley. And that became his nickname. Bob Marley. So people won't tell me what my nickname is, Brahm. But nevertheless, I remember just teaching at a girls' school, 14-year-olds, teaching like basic Buddhism. And then after the talk, the next day, I happened to be in town on some other business, and I saw some of those students. And they were walking past me, and they said, "Oh, you gave a talk at our school yesterday." And I said, "Oh, you remember me?" And they say, "We'll never forget a monk called Brahm." They were 14-year-old Westerners. They were just being naughty, teasing. But I thought it was very funny. I thanked them because I've got another story to tell. But then the walking meditation, Brahma Wang So. It was like hearing a sound such a long distance away. So I paid attention to it instead of my feet. And then I soon realized there was a monk shouting into my ear hole, right that close. Because I'd forgotten I was invited to a ceremony. I'd forgotten all about it. And the head monk had actually sent this monk to come and get me. What was fascinating, it showed that I really was peaceful. Because I realized I was mistaken. I should actually attend to this monk, but I couldn't move my head. It was so slow. Because every time you move your head, how many muscles you have to use just to move a head around? It was fascinating. And after about 2 or 3 minutes, I turned around and I saw this monk looking at me. And I said, "What?" And honestly, I'm not making it up. That's what I did. He understood you were getting calm and peaceful in meditation, so he didn't really complain. That's what meditation can do. It makes you very, very peaceful and calm. But please make sure you haven't got any other appointment. Otherwise, you get into trouble like I did. But you can get so peaceful and calm. What to do after doing the walking meditation? If you start to get peaceful like that, sit down and take that further into the jhanas. That's how it works. Is that okay? It's kind of an answer for you? Okay. Dear Ajahn, I work as a freelancer and my husband and I have different work schedules. During my weekend days off, my husband is working and I feel guilty for not working. So I end up working even on my days off, and in the end I never have days off. There is something seriously wrong with me. Please help. Even if you're a freelancer, can't you just arrange to work when your husband is working? Is that what freelancer is? You're free? But at the very least, if you tell your husband that, he will say, no, don't worry. You find some time together when you're on holidays or something. But that's even the case, if you're a family and you have kids. I remember this couple who were good Buddhists, they lived so close by. And they said, when their kids grew up, they went on their first holiday together since they got married with just the two of them, husband and wife. And they came and saw me afterwards, said this was amazing. This was the first time I was alone with my wife in about 18 years. It was like getting to know someone again, someone completely fresh, a different man, a different woman. They'd been living in the same house for those 18 years, but they were so busy with their children, they forgot to really understand and be close to each other. I thought that was fascinating. In family life, there's so many other things you get up to. You never spend time by yourself. So please, if that ever happens, that you're doing your work, he's doing his work, please spend time like on a holiday or on a retreat where you come together, get to know each other again. You may see each other every day, even lay in the same bed together, but you forget to know each other. It's nice being able to do things together to, just to get to know somebody again. Does that make any sense to you? I was going really well a few minutes ago, and now looking at lots of questions. What state of meditation is this when you feel like you are floating in a dark night sky filled with little stars? Your body has disappeared, everything has disappeared, and it's just this experience of floating, safe, happy, occupying everywhere and everything. There's nothing else and no one else, just awareness of this floating. When I came out of this state, that I thought had lasted a few seconds, in fact, hours had passed. That's like a nimitta experience when you see those stars and feel floating. It's like how the mind interprets leaving your body, the body kind of vanishing. But that nimitta is like a complex nimitta. So what usually happens is that if you can continue on, just stay there, don't interfere with it, it will become a very powerful nimitta. And after that nimitta, you may take it into a deep meditation, into a jhana. It's very close. It happened over 20 years ago, and I never meditated before. I did not understand what had happened. What do you mean you never meditated before? Not in this life. I know this little kid. He was only about 6 or 7 years of age. He was just sitting he never meditated in this life before, sitting under a rose apple tree. And he got into a first jhana. You know his name? Siddhartha Gautama, yes. The Buddha story. How could he do that? Now, I didn't mention this sutta. I think I might have mentioned it, but it's a really good one to read. It's called the Gatikara Sutta. In the Gatikara Sutta, the Buddha was walking with his attendant Ananda and smiled. And so Ananda stopped the Buddha and said, "Why did you smile?" And he said, "In this very place, in many, many, many years ago, centuries ago, there's a very prosperous town. And in this town, this was the place where the previous Buddha, Kassapa, had his monastery. And Kassapa was supported by this very simple man, Gatikara, who was a potter. And he was also, as a layperson, he was a non-returner. He got to the stage of anagami. And that's just that close to being an arahat. I mentioned the difference between an arahat, fully enlightened, and an anagami. It's like you wash your clothes and they're very clean, but the scent of the soap has not disappeared yet. There's a very tiny bit left to hold you in samsara, but not much. And that was Gatikara. And Gatikara had a close friend, Jotipala. And his close friend Jyotipala never wanted to go and see Kassapa. He called him really bad words, a bald-headed good-for-nothing. And well, that wasn't actually the translation, but that was the meaning. And anyway, Gatikara eventually convinced his best friend Jyotipala, let's go and see the Buddha. And the way he convinced him was holding his hair and pulling him. And he said, no, stop it. You're my best friend. This Kassapa must be someone really important. He said, yeah, he is. He's the Buddha. Oh, okay. And so begrudgingly, Jyotipala went to see Kassapa the Buddha. And Jyotipala was impressed. And Jyotipala eventually ordained with Kassapa the Buddha. And the story has many more details, but eventually that's the part which details Jyotipala's meeting and ordination with Kassapa the Buddha. And then Siddhartha Gautama, our Buddha, I call him, he then told Ananda, that was me in a previous life. Our Buddha, Gautama Buddha, in a previous life was a bhikkhu with Kassapa the Buddha. You see that in the Gatikara Sutta, number 64, I think, of the Majjhima Nikaya. No, not 64. I forget exactly the sutta number, but Gatikara Sutta. Do you know that sutta number? I think maybe 84. Sorry? Yeah, but that's a real sutta. And also, when the Buddha was in life, 81. So my brain is not as good as a computer. I think it's time I retire. Sorry? Close enough, okay. Anything to get me to come to Hong Kong again. But anyhow, so our Buddha in a previous life was a bhikkhu under Kassapa the Buddha. Don't you think when the Buddha was sitting under the Bodhi tree, our Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree, got into the jhanas, this is his story, the first thing he did when he came out of the jhanas was recollecting previous lives. Don't you think he would recollect a life as a bhikkhu under Kassapa the Buddha with all its details? So did the Buddha invent for himself the teachings like the Four Noble Truths? Or did he get brainwashed by the previous Buddha? They always say that even to become a stream winner, you need paratagosa, the words of another. So that's where the Buddha got that inspiration and message from. And if he was a monk with the previous Buddha, surely he would have also got jhanas. So when he was under the rose apple tree, he was always like remembering how to do it. He'd done it many times before in a previous life. So they say, it happened over 20 years, I'd never meditated before. Oh yes, you have. Previous life. It happened again a few weeks later. Just wonder which state of meditation this is. It's a jhana or something else. What I'm interested in, you saw those dark night sky filled with little stars. Your body has disappeared. Everything has disappeared. It's just this experience of floating, safe, happy, occupying everywhere and everything. But before, I've had that experience before, but these are usually followed by a jhana. And you said that you came out of this state that lasted a few seconds. In fact, hours had passed. That is more indicative that a jhana had happened, because those states, those pre-jhanic states, don't usually happen for too long. It's usually followed, by the jhanas. So it's really interesting. But that was 20 years ago. Live in the present moment. Do it again. This is more of an observation than a question. I have had allergies, intolerance for different foods all my life. On this retreat, I decided to conduct an experiment. I'm eating foods that normally I am allergic or intolerant to. There are no symptoms. Seems that when I lose my fear and am present without the baggage of the past, I'm able to eat these foods with no symptoms of nausea, headache, constipation. Amazing. Well done. I remember I think I was eating walnuts as a student, and I got an allergic reaction. I didn't really know too much about what was happening. You came out in hives all over your body, and I could hardly breathe. And instead of actually doing what a sensible person would do, was call an ambulance or a doctor, I just sat on a quiet bench. This was in the town of Durham, in the north of England. Sat on the bench and just waited for it to disappear. Eventually it did disappear. I had no fear because that was my nature. But then I asked my doctor, and the doctor said, sometimes that happens. Sometimes you're allergic once, and the next time you're not allergic at all. For me, it did happen again the next year, but much less intense. And that was the last time I had such a severe allergic reaction to walnuts. So now I can eat them. So that's what I know personally about allergic reactions. One of the most important things is don't be scared. Relax. It passes. But it's wonderful it passed here. Well done. What do you think of the teachings of Geshe Michael Roach, who says that to achieve something in life, you give that thing to others? I remember meeting him actually in Hong Kong some years ago. Was it? Yeah, it was Hong Kong. One of the first times I came here, that somebody said, oh, he's in town. Do you want to go and see him? That was such a long time ago. I think there was a temple just up in Happy Valley somewhere. It was a long time ago. To achieve something in life, you give that thing to others. There may be generalization, but not always the case. So to find an ideal partner, you help someone else to find that ideal partner. To make money, you help someone else to make money. To become a monk, what do you have to do? To give a robe to somebody else? How many people have offered robes to somebody? You have. Then you have to become a monk now. Are there any teachings by another person? I forget his name, but he is the author of the book, The Disappearance of the Universe. He discusses rebirth. I haven't heard that one. And says we each have lived countless times before. Many people have lived as us. For example, he states many people's souls have been Donald Trump. Oh, please. Or me, or you, or Jesus, or the Buddha in other dimensions or parallel lives. Any views? I think that's going a bit far. The fact that we've lived many, many times, certainly. Have you ever been me before? If you have, you know all my teachings and all my jokes. I'm going to go back to my room and have a rest. You've heard it all before. No. I think some of these teachings are good, like you lived many times before. Does that really help? And you couldn't have been a Buddha before, because once you're a Buddha, after you pass away, you disappear. You're gone. It's your last life. Nothing else. How can that happen? I remember as a physicist, I remember that one of the basic laws of science is that mass energy cannot be created or destroyed. So how did this universe begin? It's got so much mass and energy in it, it's supposed to have come from nothing. How can that happen? I remember giving a talk with the local physics professor, whose name was David Blair, and I said to him, look, there's so much energy in this universe and mass, it can't just come from nothing. But there's also things called negative energy. A negative, I'm not talking about emotional energy. I'm taking, say, this cup of water here. It takes a lot of energy to release it from the gravitational field of this Earth. You've got to use energy up for this to go out to outer space. So this has a negative energy component. And I say, what would happen if all the positive mass energy in this universe balanced with the negative mass energy in this universe? So if the whole universe, all its mass, all its energy came together in one point, it would all balance out completely. And I remember him turning around and looking at me. He knew I was a theoretical physicist before. And he said, wow, Ajahn Brahm, you're so up to date. Omega equals 1. I didn't know what omega meant, but apparently that's the balance between the mass energy in this universe and the negative mass energy in this universe. So it could all come from nothing, just like your mind. It can all come to nothing, balance out, and you're gone, baby, you're gone. Please excuse the baby thing, but I like saying that. Yesterday, Ajahn said that light will come up in jhana. I don't think I said that. The light doesn't come up in jhana. The light disappears when you're in jhana. It comes up in the nimitta, yes, but does the nimitta of seeing light represent entering a jhana? No. Sometimes when you feel the light sort of envelops you, or you go into the center of the light, that becomes a jhana. But you only know it's a jhana because when you come out afterwards, you can't forget that experience. It's like a trauma, but a positive trauma. And you're blissed out. And you're so incredibly happy. You're walking on air. I mean, not levitating, but that's how it feels. You can't get upset. If you have jhana tonight, you can't go to sleep. You just got too much energy. Could it just be some kind of mental fabrication? That type of bliss, if you can fabricate it, I don't know why people couldn't fabricate it more often. It's not a fabrication. When a person vanishes, then who is in the meditation observing? Is that our consciousness? That is what is observing, is you're right in the middle of it. It's not observation in its usual manner. To observe it, there's the observer and the observed. That's both come together. How do you know that? It's only when you come out of the meditation. And with the memory of that meditation, which is so clear, that when you come out, then that's how you experience things. Sometimes you don't even know while you're in the jhanas which particular jhana it is. When I was a kid at school, they used to have these quiz shows. At the end of the quiz show on TV, they had an image of something. And I remember one of those images was a little black spot with a brown spot around it. And it was kind of like a pentagon. And they asked, what is this? And the answer was a pencil, but photographed head on. So you just see the point, little black spot in the middle, the wood on the outside, and just the edge of the pencil. And I thought that was really weird. To be able to know what that object really was, what any object is, you take it and you move it around this way and that way, get this perspective, that perspective, and then you can understand what it is. In the jhanas, you can't move. So when you're in there, you're having a powerful experience. It's so powerful you can't forget it But you can't look at it this way or that way. It's perfectly still. And you can only see this very simple object. That's why it's hard to understand what it is until you come out. Then you can take that image of that experience. Look at it this way, look at it that way. That's where you understand which one it was. Does that make sense to you? That's why it doesn't make sense, does it? That's the best way you can describe it. Anyway, then who is in the meditation? It is that stream of consciousness which is very still, is not moving, is right on the side of something. It's like a different form of perception where I'm not watching you. As I said, you're right inside the object. And that's why they call it ekaggata. It is a manifestation of the stream of consciousness. It's not what consciousness is. Okay, I'm going to the deep stuff. Once you get into the fourth jhana, that's, they sometimes call it equanimity. I prefer to call it contentment because it's very pleasant. It's not boring at all. But once it's sat still, then something disappears. Remember I was saying that when you don't tap anything on your computer, it turns off? That's a good simile for how the mind works. In the fourth jhana, it's so still, nothing moving at all. That's the perfection of mindfulness and equanimity. So still. So it starts to turn off. And those immaterial attainments, the arupas, that is where the mind is turning off. The perception of space, the perception of consciousness turns off, and the experience is nothing. Your mind is disappearing. And then the experience of neither perception or non-perception, what the heck is that? When you look at it one way, perception has stopped. Looking at another way, perception is, you're perceiving it stopped. And after that is the full cessation of perception and feeling. That's where consciousness ceases for a while. It's nirodha, cessation. It's created by stillness. When things are really still, things stop. Everything. And then you come out afterwards, karma, and then you go backwards, back into the fourth jhana and back out the jhanas as the mind emerges. But you come out with, because it's such strong mindfulness in those places, you come out with a very clear memory of them. It's like, you can go back into the image of them. It's called Paccavekkhana jnana. That's how you have this wonderful data. And that's where you can get enlightened. Once upon a time, I feel I'm losing you. Once upon a time, there was a little tadpole. And she was a very smart tadpole. And she lived in a lake in a monastery. And in tadpole school, she did very well. And she majored in chemistry. She did so well that she could go to the university in the tadpole pond, where she studied hydrology. She became a PhD in hydrology. She knew all about water. Because it was a pond in the monastery, that sometimes she would hear monks discuss the Abhidhamma about water. This little tadpole knew everything about water, except what it was. How could a tadpole know what water is? When you were born in the water, grew up in the water, lived in the water all your life, you know as much about water as a fish does. But the difference between a fish and little tadpole was one day little tadpole, she grows appendages, little legs and little arms. she's transforming into a frog. And one day, little frog, she doesn't really know what she's doing. She jumps onto a hard surface. She's jumped out of the pond. And once little tadpole is squatting on dry land. It's the first time she's ever experienced anything like that. It's very strange, very wonderful. Now she has the opportunity of knowing the nature of water once water has disappeared. That's why the only way you can ever really understand what your body is and your five senses is when they stop. That's what the five senses are. Because you've been living in the five senses all your life. Even you know what will is. You only know what will is when it stops for a long period of time. That's what will is. The frog is now standing on dry land. Water has disappeared. Now you have the context, able to compare. I don't really worry if it doesn't make any sense. If you think I'm a mad monk, because I'm going tomorrow. But that's strange. I mean, you trust me, many of you. And so that's why I can teach to that level, because that opens your mind to those possibilities. And later on in the future, you'll understand their real powerful meaning. Dear Ajahn, would you kindly recommend a few vital points to make when we are asked to introduce Buddhism to family and friends? Just say that Buddhism makes you peaceful and happy. And, I like the idea of like being in rebirth. Because you know that rebirth was part of Christianity until, strangely, I know this number, 543 AD. Actually, 5445 AD. Because in 543 AD, 543 BC was traditionally known as the Parinibbana date of the Buddha. That's why in places like Thailand and Sri Lanka, they still have this Buddha date. You add, was it 2024, and add 543. So this is now 2567 in Thailand. And 543 AD, the Pope, there was only one Pope at that time. Christianity hadn't split up yet. And that particular Pope was asked by the Emperor Justinian II to please make any belief in rebirth anathema, in other words, not part of Christianity. And anyone who promoted it, would basically be expelled from Christianity. And the Pope said no. The Pope believed in rebirth. And you know what the emperor did? This was in Byzantium. The emperor put the Pope in jail for 1 year. And this was not the jails in Australia these days. It's probably even much rougher than the jails in Hong Kong. This was in 6th century Europe. And they put the Pope in jail. And after 1 year, he gave in. He couldn't stand it any longer, so he joined with the emperor, and they had a convocation. Was it the third? I forget. It was the third or second Council of Nicaea, and they all agreed never to promote rebirth or reincarnation ever again in Christianity. For 500 years, it was part of Christianity. Then it was taken away. So I kind of like the idea of rebirth, as a basic universal truth. It has many advantages. If people want any advice on death, they should always go to Buddhists, because we've died many times. Christians are only supposed to die once. They haven't got much knowledge of experience. Okay, no, that's a joke. Thank you and Biff for the book of quotes. Every day I will color the amazing illustrations while contemplating the quote and make each page my own. Book of quotes.
The one published by
Oh, that one, yes. Happy every day. You know, these days people don't have much. They don't have much time. Their attention span gets lesser and lesser and lesser. So that's why those book of quotes, just one page, is basically all people can manage in a day. It's supposed to be for kids. Okay, point made. I follow the precepts of not harming any living being. In that spirit, when I see a cockroach at home, I try to catch him and release him outside. Unfortunately, sometimes I try to catch the cockroach with a container. I actually accidentally hurt him. Why do you say him? Are you checking the gender? Could it be a gay cockroach? Yes. Are you tired? Do you want another joke? You know the joke about the bear, the rabbit, and the magic duck? Did I tell that here already? Oh, the first day. We're not here. How many haven't heard it? Forgot. Okay. So once upon a time in a nice quiet forest, there was a bear who was always chasing this rabbit. And one day he was chasing him past this lake where the magic duck lived. And the magic duck said, "Stop making so much noise in this peaceful forest." And he said, "Why? We're bored." And so the magic duck said, "If you promise to not chase each other again, I'll give you 3 wishes each." And Mr. Bear looked at Mr. Duck looked at Mr. Bear, and they agreed. "So, Mr. Bear, what's your first wish?" And this is one of these like alpha males. So the bear said, "My first wish is that all the bears in this whole forest are all female, and I'm the only male. Then I'd be too tired or too busy to chase this stupid rabbit." Okay, quack. And all the bears in the whole forest were female. Then he asked the rabbit, "What's your first wish?" He said, "I want a motorbike helmet with 2 holes in the back for my ears." "What do you want a motorbike helmet for?" "None of your business," says the rabbit. "You gave me a wish and you made all the bears in this forest female for Mr. Bear. Why didn't you give me what I want, which is a motorbike helmet?" Okay, quack. And then this motorbike helmet came on the head of the rabbit. He was very happy. "Okay, Mr. Bear, what's your second wish?" And Mr. Bear's second wish was, "Well, you know, once all the bears in the neighboring forest, the male bears in the neighboring forest, hear that in this forest there's only females, they'll come and migrate here. They move over here and they'll spoil my fun. So may all the bears in the country all be female, and I'm the only male bear." "Oh, crikey," said the duck. "Okay, quack." And so all the bears in the whole country were all female, and he was the only male bear. And then Mr. Rabbit said, "My second wish is to have a 1000cc Harley Davidson to go with my motorbike helmet." I said, "Okay, I can understand that," said the duck. So quack. And the little rabbit in his motorbike helmet was sitting on top of this brand new, fully gassed up 1000cc Harley Davidson, revving it up, vroom, vroom, vroom. And "Okay, Mr. Bear, what's your last wish?" And Mr. Bear's last wish said, "Well, you know, it's not just this country. All the bears in the whole world, when they found out there's only female bears here, They will come and find a boat or find a way to migrate here. And they don't have passports. You never check a bear for his passport or visa when they come into a new country. So may all the bears in the whole world all be female. And I'm the only male bear in the whole world. What a silly bear that was. But nevertheless, that was his wish. So quack. And all the bears in the whole world were female. He was the only male bear. Okay, Mr. Rabbit, what's your last wish? And Mr. Rabbit said, revving up the engine, taking off the supports, ready to make a very quick getaway. My last wish is that Mr. Bear here is gay. That's nothing against gays. It's just that Mr. Bear deserved that. Okay. All right. Okay, anyway, the cockroach. Unfortunately, sometimes when I try to catch a cockroach with the container, I accidentally hurt him. Mentally, I can't get myself to kill the cockroach to put him out of his misery. His misery? A lot of times when somebody is sick or an animal is sick, people say they put him out of his misery. You're not putting him out of his or her misery. You're putting him out of your misery. But it's hard to see him suffer, something like cause. In this case, what should I do? I would actually, if that cockroach is injured, I'd very, very carefully maybe put a piece of paper underneath him and take him out to a nice, quiet place. And so he can pass away peacefully. It's not my right to cause anyone to die. And my job is to protect and help. If I have been, because of my lack of mindfulness or carefulness, have caused an injury to them, you try to make sure you never do that again. So if you have injured a cockroach, now make a vow never to do that again by making sure your house is clean, so you don't see cockroaches in your house. We've got mice in our forest, and sometimes they come into our monastery or into Jhana Grove. And they're so cute. They are cute. And when they're not scared of you, they walk slowly. They're not scared. They don't run very fast. And sometimes I remember this family of mice, we were having our lunch, and the mice would come and walk all over you. And they were cute. It's beautiful, very clean too. I don't know where you get the idea of mice being dirty or dangerous. They were lovely. But if the health department found out, we get in big trouble. So we try and their poo is the only problem. They poo in the wrong places. And so anyway, whenever we do catch one of the mice, Buddhist mouse traps, they get stuck in there, they can't get out. So then we take them to a nice safe place further in the forest where they can survive. So where we take them usually is the grounds of Carnet Prison Farm, which is close to us. We argue that if they stole from the monks, they have to go to jail for a few days. Honestly, that's where we take them. What are the negative side effects of meditation? The only downside is you can lose your hair. Would you get addicted? I hope so. Because I said that today, anyone who gets addicted to meditation can only expect 4 results. You remember that today in the Sutta class? The 4 results, the only things which can happen if you get addicted to meditation is the first stage of enlightenment, the second stage of enlightenment, the third stage of enlightenment, or the 4th stage of enlightenment. So if you get addicted to the pleasures of meditation, you're going to get enlightened. For your example of put down the glass of water to make it still, when we meditated, we need to put it all down. Does that mean let go of our body and mind? No, what it means, the mind will disappear by itself. You let go of your sense of ownership. I have to let go of Ajahn Brahm. When I let go of that, all the doing and controlling disappear. If I don't own anything, I don't need to do anything about it. And all this stuff here, sometimes the mess I leave after lunch, I don't own it. I don't clean it up. Who cleans it up after lunch? The workers in the restaurant clean it up. If I try to clean it up, I get in trouble. I remember doing that once. After lunch in my monastery in Bodhinyana, in Bodhinyana, there was very few lay people that day, so I decided to try and help with the washing up. And I took one of the dish drying cloths, and I think I managed to dry one plate. And one of the Thai people saw me. They weren't happy. A senior monk was helping with the washing up after lunch. They never said anything. They just took the other end of the dishcloth and pulled it away from me. Said, "You're not allowed in here. This is our, not duty, but our joy doing the washing up for you." And I kind of like that, that we look at jobs to be done, like tidying up after I finish, whenever I do. We look at the tidying up here not as a job or a duty or a burden, but as a privilege. If you look like that and act like that, then you very understand what a wonderful duty it is to do a service. Would you please explain how to achieve deep relaxation from meditation, and how would it something feel like different from the normal physical mental exercise? If I read that correctly. A weird thing which I discovered from doing the physical scan of the body, like I do on a Friday afternoon and Saturday afternoon in Bodhinyana Monastery, you can relax your body so deeply. But then when my body feels relaxed, I make sure, I notice there's a certain pleasure, the joy of relaxation. And I focus on that. It always comes up. You look at your whole body, it's nicely relaxed. And I feel that relaxation. It is very delightful. And as soon as I make that the object of my meditation, delight, then my body goes deeper into relaxation. And that's where the body is really relaxed to the max. And that is not just like a slogan, relaxed to the max. It really is relaxed. And deeper than I've many times experienced before. But then it gets even more relaxed when you start noticing the mind and just start to enjoying the delight of the mind when you're in silence. You're not feeling your body anymore. And then when you're out of the way, it relaxes to an even deeper level. If you do listen to the guided meditations which I give at Bodhinyana or at Nonamara, you will notice that when you come out of the meditation, I ask you, how does it feel when you emerge from meditation? How does your mind feel? What's peace like? Then how does your body feel? And especially the bodily relaxation. After you've done some meditation, the body feels so incredibly relaxed. If you're one of those persons who wrote that question, that sometimes you find that 4 hours have passed. I'm getting old now. If I just sit here talking for an hour and a half or 2 hours, my legs start to feel uncomfortable. But if I meditate for twice that time, when you come out, it was kind of surprising the first time this happened. After a long meditation, your body had no aches or pains at all. It was actually fully relaxed. And I felt that I could enter my name for Australia in the Olympic Games and beat Usain Bolt. Your body felt so energized and fit. That's what it felt like. Because after meditation, your body is so relaxed. I kind of understand why, for some diseases or injuries, the doctors put you in an induced coma. But this is like putting yourself in an induced coma by blissing out in deep meditation. And your body is fine afterwards. Super fine. Okay, it's 36 minutes past 8. I've gone on 6 minutes. Okay, I think I've done most of that question. There are 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions left. Should I answer them or shall we finish off? Finish off. Answer them. Okay. I do this because I do feel tired, but so if somebody had the interest to ask a question, I always feel I should answer it if I possibly can. I won't answer it very deeply though, because I am getting tired. Thank you so much for your talk, which inspired me a lot. I know the advantages of meditation and I enjoyed the happiness of it so well, but I still don't have the motivation to practice every day. Can you please give some advice? Thank you. To practice it every day, do you enjoy eating? Do you practice that every day? Why? This is how Ajahn taught. He said meditation is food for the heart, for the spiritual life. And food is food, for the body, energizes the body. And if you eat good food, you can do a lot of work for other people. If you eat good mind food, meditation, you can do a lot for the world. So after a while, we motivate ourselves to meditate every day. Well, this guy, I did tell the story earlier, that this guy, he was a businessman and he told me he meditates for 1 hour every day, except when he's busy. When he's busy, he meditates 2 hours a day. That's when you notice the benefits of meditation. It makes you capable of doing more work with less effort and more efficiency. Hi, Ajahn. I understand that posture doesn't matter. However, every time when I relax to the max during sitting meditation, the lower back muscle and neck muscle also relax, can no longer sit straight and the head will fall to one side. It seems that will affect the depth of the meditation. Is there any suggestion? Don't worry about it, because a lot of time if your neck is to the side, that's what your body wants to do. And I think you will notice that if the meditation starts getting deep, your body will choose its own posture. I remember just getting very, very tired and sleepy when I was a young monk. I decided not to fight the sleepiness, but be aware of it, let it be kind to my body. And I noticed as the mindfulness increased, the neck lifted up all by itself. And when those things happen, you notice it's weird. I never did that. It did it by itself. So a lot of the times I trust my body. If the body is moving over to one side, your head is moving over, just be kind to it. It will balance itself, especially when you start getting close to deep meditation. Dear Ajahn Brahm, what is your view on Gaza war? The Gaza war is very unfair, a bit one-sided. But nevertheless, I've seen so many one-sided wars in my lifetime. This is what people do until they learn how to act better. And eventually we learn that nobody wins a war like that. And you can't do genocide and just destroy a whole people. There's many people who survive that war who will never forgive. And so the violence will continue again and again and again. But there comes a time when people actually do have forgiveness in no interest to use violence or to use revenge. That's one of the reasons why there was a saying I was kind of responsible for it. Many people liked it. Please excuse the language. There's no need to seek revenge because karma will get the BASTARDS anyway. And I kind of like that. Now, the word bastard, it doesn't mean a swear word. That was used in Australia for your friends. It was. And sometimes if Gerald would come to Australia, I say, how you going, you old... And it was never meant to be derogatory. It was like a sign of familiarity. So, so because of that, why do we need to always have revenge? Karma usually does the job for us. So, with regards to war, but why do we have to always have wars? I think the meaning of wars is we have to learn how to be more forgiving, more sharing, more caring. How can you sort of take people's property away and say, no, it's ours because some book promised it to us? Anyway, if the body contemplation, the corpse meditation contemplation really works, shouldn't all the doctors, the butchers, the funeral workers be enlightened already? Now, one of the wonderful things of being a monk in Thailand, and then also when we came to Australia, that we would go to autopsies. And I was always fascinated, not scared of the body. I remember there used to be a program on the BBC when I was young called Your Body. And it was like operations. They were filmed and they were put on the TV screen. And I said, can I watch that, Mum? I was only about 11 years of age or something. And they said, no, it's disgusting just watching a person's body be cut up. And I said, but it's educational. And they always let me watch it. They left the room with my brother. I watched it by myself. I was always fascinated with that, never repulsed. So when I became a monk, you could actually go to the autopsies. But also when I came to Perth, our president, Dennis, he lived next door to the coroner. So he talked the coroner into letting us go to see the autopsies. And they were just fascinating. But then eventually we asked not the coroner, the guy who actually did the surgery, the cutting up the body. An interesting question. He was married. He said, what does this do to your relationship? You're cutting up people every day. Does that mean your lust disappears? And what he said, no, he compartmentalizes. The way he looks at the surgery work and seeing deceased bodies every day, that's his job, was so different than being with his family. It was like separating parts of his life. That kind of explained a lot to me. Why during the Second World War, there's people doing terrible things to the people in the concentration camps. Then they would go home and just really enjoy playing around with the little kids in the garden. How could they ever do that? And I got the answer from that coroner. You compartmentalize. This is my work. This is not me. During the sitting, sometimes I realized the breathing had stopped before, but I had no idea if I'd been in trance or in sleep, actually. How to differentiate? If you had been in sleep, then afterwards you are dull. When you come out, you're sleepy. If you are in a jhana, when you come out, you're really awake and you can't sleep and you're full of energy. So it's how you feel afterwards is the best way to differentiate. Was I asleep or was I in a jhana? So now, The last question. It was only an extra 15 minutes. I notice I've been resting a lot in this retreat because I'm tired instead of meditating. Is there a recommendation to maintain balance? First of all, I'd say, well done. You were listening to your body. Your body needed a rest. Just today at the lunch table, remember talking with Albert? And I said, one day, because these are the owners of the hotel, and they have charitable causes they support. I said, why don't one day we make a special retreat center? Not to teach meditation, a sleep retreat, where you have very lovely beds, just the right temperature in your room. You don't have to do anything. You can sleep however long you want, any time of the day or night. Breakfast is served 24/7, lunch 24/7. You go to the restaurant, whatever you think you need. And straight away, Albert said, yeah, I want to go. And why not? Many people are sleep deprived. And from sleep deprivation, that's when a lot of ill will comes from. When you don't sleep well at night, you're cranky, you're grumpy. And so that's one of the reasons why, if you feel like that, have a sleep. There was this one lady, she was an executive at one of my retreats in Sydney, and she came late. So in the morning, she asked for a special briefing on what the retreat was like and what she should do. And I said, look, you're obviously so tired. So you go and sleep. Sleep until lunch. After lunch, sleep again. At tea time, you can come out for tea. You don't need to come out for any talks or meditation. Just go and sleep. Catch up. And they were sleeping in dormitories, 4 to a room. And so on an interview time, she said, all the other women in the room, they hate me. They look at me with so much anger because I don't go to anything. I just sleep. And my response was, they're not looking at you with anger. They're looking at you with jealousy. And you're laughing, you understand. For the first 3 days, she did nothing but eat and sleep. I think she went to one talk and to have an interview with me. But after 3 days, she just slept. The next 3 days, she didn't sleep as much. She came to a few talks and meditations. She soon caught up. And by the end of the 9-day retreat, I really sort of admire her. She was a star meditator of that retreat. She knew that she needed to rest her body, first of all, to care for her body. And then the mind would cooperate so easily. If you fight your body, you're fighting your mind as well. And after a while, who's stronger? The mind or your body? Or you? You will lose. This one guy in Thailand, he was taking his water buffalo out to the fields to graze. And the water buffalo got spooked by something. And the water buffalo tried to run away. And he just had a small rope to guide the water buffalo. And he tried to hold the water buffalo back with this rope. What is stronger, a water buffalo or the man? The buffalo. So the string wound around his finger and pulled the top of his finger off. And he came into our monastery, which was right next door, with half a finger. He wasn't hurting so much, he was still in shock. So we took him to the hospital, he got it all stitched up, he survived. But we thanked him for actually giving us another simile of Dhamma. If your mind wants to run off or go to sleep, which is stronger? Let the mind go. The buffalo only runs off a little way. Then you can gently walk after your water buffalo. Then you take it to the field where it's supposed to be. It's only running away for a little distance, just like those little kids ran away only just 50 meters past the front gate of their house because they were homesick. Be kind to your body. Be kind to your mind. It needs rest, and afterwards, it's like it says, "Thank you for looking after me. Now, what can I do for you?" And I'll try to look after as many of you as I possibly can. And when I look after you, then you come and say to me, "What can I do for you? How can I care for you?" And you really pamper me. So that's like your mind. If you're kind to your mind, then the mind will come up to you and say, "What do you need, Gerald?" And then you say, "Well, maybe your first jhana. Is that all?" Can I give you a second? Because this is like kindness. And kindness is natural. You want to give back. And that's actually just how this works. If you're kind to yourself, the body wants to work with you. And that's how you get the deep meditations. It makes sense? Hopefully, because that's all you're getting. So thank you for listening, and thank you for giving me another, actually it's now 20 minutes, in order that I can finish all the questions. That's every one of, hey? No, that was the last question. Again, thank you all. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Excellent. So it's now, I've got 8:52. Not that bad, is it? Okay. I wish you a pleasant evening, and I will see you tomorrow morning. Maybe. Future sunset. Oops. Remember what I said, what they call old monks in Thailand? Or oi. And me oi. Oi. Good night, everybody.